Okay, so this week we're going to be doing our VTS discussion at home. And for this one, students, remember you're just going to be using your VTS discussion notes, which should be in this email that this link was in. So if you haven't printed that yet, go back, print that out, and use it during this, because we're going to just do the VTS discussion, and we're not going to do the Art A&E this week. So. All right, so let's get going. So this is our image this week. Tasty. Okay, so this is, clearly it is a teacup and a saucer and a spoon. But they are wrapped in fur, and we see that it's some white fur here. Some of it's not completely covered, okay? So we can still see parts of the actual object underneath it. This fur is wrapped very well around the cup here. So there's not a lot of visuals here as far as describing this, except that it's made with fur, it's a cup, a saucer, and a spoon, and some places are left open. So those are a few of the visuals. So let's get right into this and see what exactly, who made this, why they made it, and what this is for. Okay, so in order to start, we're going to have to talk about a few other things first. So this piece is called Luncheon in Fur. That's the name. So if you want, you can put that for the title. And it's by Moret Oppenheim. And it was completed in 1936. So, but we're going to go back a little bit before 1936 and talk about a few things. As the world celebrated that's typo, 100 years of Dadaism, it is worth looking at how this anti-art movement that started in a cafe in Zurich during World War I resulted in an iconic artwork involving one of the most humble objects, a teacup. So we're going to look at Dadaism real quick, because this is something that was happening before Oppenheim made this luncheon in fur. So let's discuss Dadaism. Dada came about during the First World War as a negative reaction to the horrors and follies of the war. The art, poetry, and performance produced by Dada artists is often satirical and nonsensical in nature. As a movement, it opposed the surge and uprising of capitalism culture. The founders thought that the art that existed during that time was degrading. Therefore, Dadaism aimed to create a new art form different from all the other preceding arts. Now, isn't that usually how an art form, like an art era, comes about? It comes about due to its disagreement with the current art era that's there. And they're looking for a new way to do things, new way to express stuff based off of society and all those sorts of things. So here we see an example of Dada art. Okay, this is a collage. It's kind of just pieced together. There's not really any sense to it. The term Dada was invented in 1916. Dada is a colloquial French word which means hobby horse. Some even termed it as anti-art, such as Marshall Duchamp, a famous French-American painter. Therefore, Dadaism is an art, yet it opposes art itself by questioning art. So, that's where its potency lies, in its absurdity. The central weapon of Dadaism is absurdity. Through these creative absurdities, Dada's protest and frantically react against the frivolities that encapsulate the modern world. So here's another image from the Dada art. Just looks like pieces kind of thrown together in a bit of an absurd way. A typical example of Dada art that defies art convention is Man Ray's art piece termed Gift. So, okay, so this may make you laugh. He presented this art piece to Eric Satie, not for sure that's how you say his last name, but during their first meeting. Conventionally, an art piece takes hours, if not days, to accomplish. Okay, we're working on some right now. That's going to take us several weeks. Okay, and we're just working on it for like an hour a day, but still. However, Man Ray finished his art piece titled Gift by simply sticking some tacks to a flat iron with some glue. Ta-da! He's done. Then he presented it as a gift to this man, Eric Satie. So just put some tacks on your iron and you're done. When Ray finished his art piece in no time compared to the standard time required of conventional art pieces, anyone can virtually join some things together and christen it a fanciful name. Ta-da! I have art and I've done it. It's Dada art. So, ta-da! But can such a person's piece be seen as art? What do you think? Do you think this is art or do you think this is nonsense? Well, nonsense for them would be Dada art. So, to them, yes, because it took on three basic ideas of Dadaism. Spontaneity, what that's pretty spontaneous, negation, and absurdity. So, now, let's move up a little bit, okay, from 1920 to 1950, and you notice this artwork with the luncheon and fur was done in this time period, okay. Surrealism came onto the stage. So we went from Dadaism to Surrealism. Trailing on the tail of Dadaism, it's focused on the positive rather than the pessimistic rejections of earlier traditions. Like it's a very pessimistic art form because it's essentially anti-art, anti-everything. So Surrealism is it sought access to the subconscious, okay, to your mind, to translate this flow of thought into terms of art. Salvador Dali, I'm sure you've heard of him. This is him. He's a little crazy looking. He's got some crazy eyes. And Rene Magritte pursued a hallucinatory, I can't even say that word, sense of superreality, in which senses depicted made no real sense. There was also the use of juxtaposition of unrelated items. That's when you put two unrelated items together, and it creates a startling realities and uncommon imagery. Now here's an image of the super reality where it's a scene that really makes no real sense. It's a very kind of strange, a little disturbing scene. And there was a lot of his stuff that was kind of strange like that. But juxtaposition, it's a word you need to know. It's when two unrelated items are put together. Things that usually do not go together are put together, which kind of reminds you of maybe the fur and the cup. We never see, stuff we eat and drink out of covered in fur. Those two things don't go together. So now let's get back to our piece. Okay. In 1936, a 23-year-old Swiss artist named Mariette Oppenheim she bought a teacup, a saucer, and a spoon from a store and decided to do something very odd with them. And what she made would end up becoming a defining artifact of surrealism. Now, one of them. There was other things, but this would be one of the big ones. So the story goes like this. Mariette was having a conversation in Paris at a cafe between herself, Picasso, and his girlfriend, Dora Maar. Yes, Picasso had a girlfriend. They were admiring Mariette's fur-covered bracelet that she had on her wrist. Okay, she had a bracelet, which sparked a discussion about, what else might be covered in fur? So this led her to her greatest shopping trip ever. She purchased a pelt fur and covered a teacup and a spoon with it, and a saucer. So this fur-covered teacup, saucer, and spoon, covered in Chinese gazelle pelt, is a bit unsettling to look at. It is a hybrid creation, mixing the animal world with civilization. So, this creation was the object that caught Andre Breton's eye, the founder of Surrealism. So, Surrealism was already started by this time, and they were about to have their first big show of surrealism, big exhibit, okay? So he saw this, it caught his eye, and he liked it. So he named the piece Luncheon in Fur, or it's also known as Breakfast in Fur, and exhibited it that same year that she made it at the first Surrealist exhibition dedicated to Surrealist objects. So she made this just in time, and it almost immediately got noticed and got put in this big exhibition. At the show, the sculpture became the focal point of all sorts of talk and interpretations, from silly to something vulgar and to something animalistic or anatomical. Among those impressed were Alfred J. Barr, Jr., the young director of the New York's newly established Museum of Modern Art. She ended up selling the piece to him for $50, which that would be about $897 in 2019 of last year. So about $900 or whatever. So it was quite a bit of money back then. So let's discuss the artwork and its purpose now. Okay, the main intent is a social revelation. She didn't just decide, let's just do something funny and just put some fur on the teacup. Both the tea and the fur were a mark of civilization and sophistication. Okay, tea has always been something that the sophisticated people have, right? But fur is more animalistic in nature. So tea was sipped and furs were worn by refined women. Yet, okay, you have fur that's refined, tea that's refined as well, but when combined together, it becomes distinctly uncivilized and unsophisticated. It almost reminds you of something that like a caveman would have, right? So, as a side note, this sculpture also created both for the strange, it was created for the strange value, right? Which is a lot of surrealism. It's created because of its strangeness, sorry, and for the contrasting societal ideology that we just spoke about. It's also important to take note that there is a contrasting desire when one looks at the piece. So, fur is pleasing to the touch, right? To touch it and feel it. We like to pet our animals and all that. But if you put fur in your mouth, okay, that's no good. That's repulsive, as in the case of a cup. But a cup's supposed to be in your mouth, right? Your mind says that the cup and the spoon are for putting in your mouth, but the sensational understanding of the fur makes it a maddening cycle. So says the critic Will Gompertz, which is, yes, so that's the problem with this, is that you know this is supposed to go in your mouth, you sip it in a spoon, but then at the same time you're thinking, no fur in my mouth, thank you. So that's that juxtaposition. Moret Oppenheim died November 15th, 1985. So make sure you write that down. After a hectic life and several emotional issues in her younger years. And if you want to know what all those were, you can look her up at your own time if you want to, but she did have her bout with a lot of emotional issues in her life. Though she did leave an impression on the surrealism era of art that will not be soon forgotten. And here's a picture of her as she was older, and there is her luncheon and fur. She took a picture with that. Okay, so that's it. Go ahead and finish your stuff and make sure your notes are done. And I'll give you your notebooks and stuff back next time. And you can finish up your observational sketches and stuff the next week. So, all right, I will see you Tuesday. Bye.